Some might be curious as to my choice to put video of playgrounds to my narrations of certain stories. Some of you also might not be, which would be strange. To not be curious is to be less than human. This is a response to such an inquiry, or perhaps an artist statement. What it isn't is a horror story, or worse, a biography. Honestly, it's perfunctory and random. That is, the selection of footage, or at least as random as an identity with an intent can be. That said, there are many other reasons that could be less shallow. It all starts with a playground for all of us, and I, along with many others in my generation, have refused to leave our playgrounds. I, for that reason, set my debut video on a playground with an early memory, a memory that's unexplainable due to the passage of time and compression of recallable facts. I'm afraid I'm getting sidetracked. Playgrounds are an underutilized symbol, rich in detail and possibility. They're usually free and open to the public, making filming them easy. They are at the very least a sight to see. But more than that, a playground can tell you endless things about the surrounding area. My corporeal host lives in an upper-middle-class neighborhood, conservative, in a Midwestern state in America. It's a neighborhood that holds a lot of tax money but isn't completely sure how to waste it. Never has known how. The houses in the neighborhood are built uniformly around curving roads and stark cul-de-sacs, much like untraveled rich kids around a Boy Scout campfire, spaced out and unsure of one another. Those from the countryside might not make the connection, but they'll know something is missing from view. The locals might comment that the power lines are buried underground, and they'll stop inspection. But as mentioned, such people are less than human. Indeed, the secret these houses hold as a collective community is a secret of space. Space containing old play equipment. Indeed, as curious and as human as he was, it took a power outage in 4 years to discover the hidden tombs accessible to the public. With no electronic screen to sedate him, he ventured out into the unknown to clear his head, into the hostile and humid hot day. Afraid of the many bullies and fellow young adults that just plain hated him, he was pushed into a new and unlabeled grassy knoll. There were swings that, although functional, made jarring noises when in motion. This made him feel like he was an intruding spaz into a biker bar. There were thin metal slides that looked as though they were made of a particularly thick aluminum foil. It was hot enough to fry eggs, thin to the point that only a 4-year-old could comfortably slide down it, and open enough to not be safe for anyone under 4. Lastly, the giant metal rusted rocket ship toy that took him to a place he had nearly forgotten. This place was his preschool. He grew up in a lovely small town, Chillicothe, population 21,735 as of 2000. The school couldn't keep on every light, so the massive stairs that led to the underground area where the preschool children were taught was unlit. So were the bathrooms and the 2-story high stucco ceilings with exposed piping, as well as the area where the children dropped off their book bags. The first week he attended, the children were afraid without the lights, yet it had a calming effect on him. There was something so familial about the building, maternal even, nurturing. The preschool had well-meaning teachers and staff, but even then, in a small town, tradition and normalcy are paramount. And as the saying goes, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down, even if that nail's a child. This boy was inspected by any number of professionals with possible diagnoses, from the fad of the 90s ADD or ADHD to having autism, which would come into vogue in the aughts. To the teachers, he was just plain old unsocial. To classmates, he wasn't weird or strange. He was just non-existent. A ghost. Not the kind you tell scary stories about either. Remember, in case you forgot, this isn't a horror story. The school had well-meaning staff, who also had no control over funds or regulations. So every child was forced to take a free lunch, which he threw into the trash every day. It was a waste of food, and funds were tight. What a wasteful child, they thought, wondering why he had no desire to eat. He got tired of trying to explain why he didn't eat, so he just stopped trying. Remember, in case you forgot, this isn't a biography. Tight money meant that the 1960s steel playground equipment was roasting in the hot 1990s heatwave sun. It wasn't much of a problem when the kids remembered not to wear shorts, though. The center of the playground was a steel rocket ship, located near the far side of the building that long ago put on a veneer of rust. Every child wanted to climb the thing, but none of them knew how. A playground is where problem-solving and curiosity are introduced to children, and it's in that respect, despite being unsafe, confusing, and unconquerable, that this metal ship was a toy of genius. The school had classes divided into two groups that rarely mingled and played on separate sides of the playground, alternating days between sides. He had no regard for the division. He once wandered off from his group to attempt to climb the rocket ship. His teacher pulled him aside and asked, "You have to stay with those you know. Who is that?" She pointed at a classmate on his side of the playground. He responded, "I don't know any of their names," which was true. This wasn't his first memory, but it might have been his first independent thought. And the first time this memory was remembered was sitting on that swing hidden behind the new neighborhood, looking at a toy similar to the one he had seen all those years ago, a rocket ship that seemed to share the same rusty marks as the one from his earlier thoughts. But as mentioned, this new place, Westerville, has too much tax money on hand, and think of the children. So in the open is the new and regulation-safe play equipment. The big difference between the open and the hidden, and perhaps it's a very subtle difference, is the lack of open play space, the lack of a blacktop, room for children to imagine. This isn't a commentary on society or how things change. It's just a note on design philosophy. These enclosed low to the ground and softer plastic toys were a note that he was in a different place from Chillicothe. And once in middle school, it was perfectly clear. We all have dark spots. His was early. Years of solitude and loneliness paired with a rush of hormones prematurely made this brooding and serious adolescent angry and delusional. He trotted home from the bus as quickly as possible as to avoid harassment from classmates. Some that bullied him, and others that just wanted to be friends. Always the victim, always the anti-hero. In his mind, he fought back against those that hadn't even slighted him. And afraid of his own mind and lack of self-control, he sought refuge in the darkest of addictions. Anime. What a snowflake he was. Boy, how he had lost his innocence. He consumed anime constantly, regardless of quality, like an alcoholic chugging down the lowest grade vodka, the taste of rubbing alcohol. Always abusive, never reflective, retreating like Paul into heavenly seclusion. Once the power outage jostled him from his consumption, he drew up plans, secret plans, The next time he'd come under verbal fire from his peers, he'd calmly walk to one of the playgrounds, hidden, where he could beat them to a pulp, consequence-free. There were a number of obvious flaws with this plan. I won't point them all out, one of them being that no witnesses wouldn't mean that he would get away. Two was that they didn't follow him. They didn't follow him. The rainy afternoon at which it happened, he walked alone to the playground he had recently discovered. The rain was truly pouring. He could barely see the backs of houses. He was alone in this playground. His playground. Cooling off. His revenge fantasies stopped meaning anything there. Reality took over. It's not that simple, though. Delusions linger, even after the source of them are cut off from us. Even after the nightlight is turned on and the closet has been inspected by Father. It took him until the end of middle school to learn that he was a liar. Until the end of high school to learn that wasn't a bad thing. Until the end of college to craft his lies into mundane, believable, and strange things they purport to be today. Playgrounds hold a lot of weight in my mind, even if they don't in yours. That would be my fault if they don't. I felt like telling rather than showing today. Now, none of what I said is actually true. So this isn't a biography. The story hasn't ended, so it's too early to tell if it's a horror story. But really, the use of playgrounds is just perfunctory and random. But the new rocket ship up here in Westerville was removed a few years ago. Or maybe I just imagined it.